When a 65-year-old retired American woman packs up 4 decades of her life into 3 oversized suitcases, empties her savings account, and boards a 22-hour flight across the Pacific Ocean to marry a 32-year-old Filipino man she met on the internet, the world doesn't just judge her, it laughs at her. My own adult children looked at me across my dining room table back in Ohio like I had completely lost my mind. My daughter Sarah crossed her arms, her face turning bright red with anger, and looked me dead in the eye. "Mom, have you completely lost your senses? He is 32 years old. He is younger than your own son. He doesn't love you, Mom. He is using you for a green card. He is using you for your Social Security check. And the very second your bank account runs dry, he is going to leave you stranded in a foreign jungle with nothing to your name." My friends at the church auxiliary stopped calling me. The neighbors whispered behind their manicured hedges as I loaded up a moving truck. Everyone was completely convinced that I was walking straight into a classic international romance scam, that I was an old, desperate fool who had fallen for sweet words typed across a glowing phone screen at 2 in the morning. And to be completely honest with you, on that rainy Tuesday afternoon in March 2024, when the wheels of the airplane touched down on the tarmac at the Cebu International Airport, my knees were shaking so hard that I could barely stand up from my seat. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked out the small oval window at the swaying palm trees and the heat waves rising off the runway, and a cold wave of pure terror washed over my chest. I asked myself the exact same question that had been keeping me awake for 6 months. Did I just make the biggest, most humiliating, life-ruining mistake of my entire existence? Today, 2 years after taking that terrifying leap into the unknown, I am finally ready to tell the whole, unvarnished truth. I am going to reveal every single detail of what actually happens when an older Western woman crosses cultural, generational, and racial lines to marry a young island man. The shocking financial realities, the devastating cultural clashes, the dark secrets nobody warns you about online, and the real, unexpected answer to whether this radical journey saved my soul or completely shattered my life. My name is Margaret, and to understand how a sensible 65-year-old retired high school librarian from suburban Cleveland ended up living in a coastal village in the province of Bohol, you have to understand the slow, invisible death that happens to an aging woman in America. For 34 years, I was married to my high school sweetheart, Richard. We lived a predictable, quiet suburban life. We paid our mortgage, mowed our lawn every Saturday, hosted Thanksgiving dinners, and raised 2 children who eventually grew up, moved to other states, and got busy with their own careers. Then, in the winter of 2020, Richard suffered a massive stroke while shoveling the driveway. In less than 48 hours, the man I had shared my life with for over 3 decades was gone, and I was left standing in a cold, 4-bedroom house that suddenly felt as empty and quiet as a mausoleum. For 3 long years after Richard's funeral, I existed in a state of gray, suffocating numbness. In Western society, once a woman crosses the threshold of 60, she becomes invisible. You walk through the grocery store and people look straight through you. You sit in your living room watching the clock tick, eating frozen dinners alone on the sofa, realizing that days go by without another human being touching your hand or asking you how your heart is doing. My pension and Social Security were barely keeping up with skyrocketing property taxes, heating bills, and medical insurance premiums. My joints ached constantly in the damp Ohio winters, but the cold ache inside my chest was 10 times worse. I wasn't living. I was simply waiting around for my turn to die. Then, in late 2023, feeling a deep, desperate pang of loneliness during the holidays, I joined an international pen pal and language exchange forum. That was the night I received a polite, simple message from a young man named June. June was 32 years old, living in a small coastal town on the island of Bohol. He worked as a dive master and boat mechanic, guiding tourists through coral reefs by day and repairing diesel boat engines by night. When his profile picture first popped up on my screen, I almost closed the browser immediately. He had warm, sun-bronzed skin, thick black hair, an easy, disarming smile, and dark eyes that seemed to hold a lifetime of quiet resilience. He was young enough to be my youngest son. Every alarm bell that Western culture had installed in my brain started ringing at once. Margaret, close the laptop. Don't be ridiculous. This is a young kid looking for a ticket out of poverty. You are an old woman with gray hair and wrinkles around your eyes. But his messages weren't full of aggressive flattery or cheesy pickup lines. He didn't ask me for money. He didn't ask me about my financial status. He asked me about my favorite books. He told me about the ocean currents around his island, about how he helped take care of his aging grandmother after his father passed away, and about the deep spiritual connection his people had with family and community. For 8 months, we talked every single day. We moved to video calls. I saw him sitting on his family's open-air bamboo porch, surrounded by stray cats and laughing neighborhood kids. When I looked into his eyes through that screen, I didn't see an opportunistic predator. I saw a gentle, hardworking soul who was as lonely and disconnected in his world as I was in mine. When June asked me to come to the Philippines to meet him in person, promising to show me his island and introduce me to his family, I knew everyone in my life would think I was insane. But standing in that cold Ohio kitchen with snow blowing against the glass, I realized I had 2 choices. I could stay in my safe, comfortable prison and slowly wither away in the cold, or I could risk everything on one final wild chance at feeling truly alive. When I walked through the sliding glass doors of the Cebu Airport arrival terminal, my heart was lodged in my throat. I scanned the crowd of hundreds of people holding name signs, half expecting nobody to be there, half expecting to be greeted by a con artist who looked nothing like his photos. And then I saw him. June was standing near the front of the barrier, wearing a clean white linen shirt and dark trousers, holding a small bouquet of freshly picked yellow frangipani flowers. When our eyes met across the crowded terminal, his entire face lit up with a smile so radiant, so completely devoid of hesitation or disgust, that every ounce of tension drained out of my shoulders. He didn't look at my gray hair. He didn't look at the wrinkles around my neck or my plus-sized frame. He walked straight up to me, wrapped his strong, sun-warmed arms around me in a tight, protective embrace, and whispered softly into my ear, "Welcome home, Margaret. You are safe now. I have waited so long to see you." That first week felt like a dream. June took me across the blue waters on a fast ferry to his home island of Bohol. He had rented a small, spotless oceanfront cottage for us in a quiet municipality called Panglao, surrounded by swaying coconut palms and turquoise water that looked like liquid glass. The tropical warmth soaked into my arthritic joints, melting away the chronic stiffness that had plagued me for a decade. But as the initial honeymoon haze of the first 2 weeks began to settle, the raw, brutal reality of our situation came crashing into the open. The first major shock was the relentless, suffocating pressure of public perception. In Western cities, you can disappear into a crowd. But on a provincial Philippine island, an older white woman walking hand in hand with a young, handsome local man turns every single head on the street. Everywhere we went, the local market, the pharmacy, roadside restaurants, people stared. Foreign tourists, especially older Western men sitting in bars with young Filipina girlfriends, would look at June and me with blatant disgust and cynical smirks. I could hear their snide whispers across the room. "Look at that old cougar over there. She thinks that local boy actually wants her? Wait till she figures out she's just his retirement plan." Those comments cut through my soul like a dull razor. Every time someone stared, my internal insecurity screamed at me. I would look at June's smooth, youthful face and then catch my own reflection in a shop window. An aging, pale grandmother walking beside a young islander, and a deep, sickening wave of shame would wash over me. I started pulling my hand away from his in public. I started wearing dark sunglasses and hiding under large hats, terrified that everyone was looking at me as a pathetic, desperate joke. One evening, after a particularly humiliating afternoon at a tourist restaurant where a group of European travelers openly laughed at us, I broke down in tears on the porch of our cottage. June sat down beside me, gently took my trembling hands in his, and looked deeply into my eyes, his voice firm and completely serious. "Margaret, listen to me. Why do you let strangers who know nothing about your heart control your happiness? In my culture, we do not measure a person's worth by the year on their birth certificate. We look at their soul, their kindness, and their respect. I did not fall in love with an age. I fell in love with you. If the whole world laughs, let them laugh. They do not sleep in our bed, and they do not live in our home." His words brought tears to my eyes, but words alone could not protect us from the second, far more dangerous battle that was waiting for us: the crushing reality of the traditional Filipino family dynamic. In the West, when you marry someone, you marry an individual. But in the Philippines, when you marry a man, you marry his entire extended bloodline: his mother, his siblings, his aunts, his cousins, and every neighbor in his village. June's family was deeply impoverished. His widowed mother, Nanay Elena, lived in a dilapidated wooden house with a rusting tin roof 3 miles inland, sharing 2 small rooms with June's younger sister, her 3 children, and an invalid uncle. When June brought me to the village to meet his mother for the first time, I was terrified. I expected his mother, who was actually 3 years younger than me, to reject me with fury for being older than her own son. We walked down a muddy dirt path lined with banana trees and crowing roosters, arriving at the humble family home. Nanay Elena was waiting on the wooden steps, wearing a faded cotton house dress. She looked at me, saw how nervous I was, and before I could even say a word of greeting, she walked down the steps, took my right hand, and pressed the back of my knuckles gently against her forehead in the traditional Filipino blessing called mano. Then she wrapped her arms around my neck and held me tight. "Thank you for loving my son," she whispered in broken English, tears shining in her dark eyes. "You have good heart, Margaret. You are family now." I thought that acceptance meant our troubles were over. I was completely wrong. In the Philippines, there is a cultural concept called utang na loob, a deep, lifelong debt of gratitude toward one's family. And when a foreigner enters a local family, an unspoken automatic assumption is triggered. The foreigner is perceived as a bottomless fountain of infinite wealth. Within 2 months of our traditional wedding at the local municipal hall, the financial demands began to roll in like an unrelenting tidal wave. It started small: $50 to buy medicine for a cousin's fever, $20 to fix a broken water pipe at the family house. But soon, the requests turned into massive, urgent emergencies. One Saturday morning, June's brother-in-law arrived at our cottage in tears, claiming his motorcycle had been repossessed and he couldn't deliver fish to the market to feed his kids unless I gave him $800 immediately. The next week, an aunt in Manila was suddenly in the hospital needing $3,000 for an emergency surgery. Every single family gathering turned into a high-stakes financial negotiation where all eyes were quietly fixed on my purse. June was caught in a brutal, soul-crushing vice. On one side was his traditional duty to never turn his back on his blood. On the other side was his pride and his fierce desire to protect me from being exploited. I watched the stress eat away at him. He started working 12-hour shifts on the dive boats, skipping meals, and coming home with bloodshot eyes and grease-stained hands, desperately trying to earn extra cash so his relatives wouldn't ask me for help. The breaking point arrived 6 months into our marriage. I woke up at 2 in the morning to find the bed empty. I walked out into the living room and saw June sitting on the floor in the dark, his head buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent, violent sobs. On the table was a crumpled piece of paper, a formal hospital bill for his mother, who had been diagnosed with severe kidney failure and required emergency dialysis treatments costing nearly $2,000 a month. I sat down on the floor beside him and pulled his head onto my lap. "Margaret, I am so sorry," June wept, his voice cracking like dry wood. "Everyone told you I was marrying you for your money. Now my mother is dying and my family expects you to pay for everything. You should leave me. You should go back to America before my family drains your life away. You do not deserve this burden." I looked down at this 32-year-old man who had given up his reputation, worked himself to the bone, and shielded me from the world's cruelest judgments, weeping on the floor because he loved his mother and loved his wife. In that dark, quiet room, the lingering ghost of my fear completely evaporated. I realized that love isn't a fairy tale where nothing ever goes wrong. Love is choosing who you are willing to stand in the storm with when the roof gets torn off your house. I looked at him, lifted his chin, and spoke with the absolute authority of a woman who had survived 65 years on this earth. "June, look at me. I did not move across an ocean to be a tourist, and I did not marry you to run away when things get hard. We are partners. We are going to handle this together, but we are going to handle it my way, with boundaries, structure, and smart decisions." That very next morning, the retired school librarian in me took complete control of the situation. I called a mandatory family meeting at our cottage. Every single member of June's extended family sat on our bamboo living room chairs. His mother, his siblings, his uncles, and his cousins. I laid out a giant financial ledger on the center table. I didn't yell. I didn't insult anyone. I spoke clearly, calmly, and firmly through an interpreter. I love June, and because I love June, I love this family. I will pay for Nane Elena's initial hospital deposits and secure her dialysis treatments through the National Health Insurance Program, PhilHealth, which I will register her for this week. But hear me clearly, the ATM is permanently closed. I will not pay for repossessed motorcycles. I will not fund luxury smartphones. I will not hand out cash for personal debts. Instead, June and I are establishing a family commercial enterprise. We are purchasing 2 brand new outrigger motorized dive boats. June will manage the operations, and every able-bodied brother and cousin in this room will have a paid, hardworking job as a crew member or mechanic. You will earn your own livelihood, feed your own children, and build your own dignity. If you want money, you will pick up a wrench and work. The room was completely silent. Some of the older uncles looked down in embarrassment, but June's mother looked at me with tears in her eyes and slowly nodded her head. That was 18 months ago. Today, that small family enterprise, Panglao Blue Horizon Tours, operates 3 fully booked commercial dive and island hopping boats. June's brothers and cousins are among the hardest working, most respected marine crew members on the entire coast. They earn 3 times the average local wage. They take care of their own families with pride, and not a single relative has asked me for a handout in over a year. Nanay Elena's kidney condition is fully stabilized, and every Sunday afternoon, our entire extended family gathers on the beach for a giant feast of fresh grilled tuna, sweet mangoes, and laughter that echoes across the water. And what about my life? What about the 65-year-old American woman who was supposed to end up broke, abandoned, and crying in a foreign jungle. Take a look at my reality today. I wake up every single morning at 6 o'clock to the gentle sound of turquoise ocean waves lapping against the white sand right outside our bedroom window. The sun rises over the green hills, painting the sky in shades of brilliant gold and violet. I walk into our open-air kitchen, and June is already there, having brewed a fresh pot of rich mountain coffee, setting a plate of sliced ripe papaya and warm eggs on the wooden table. Before he leaves for the dive harbor, he walks over, wraps his arms around my waist, kisses the silver hair at my temples, and looks into my eyes with the exact same raw, genuine devotion he had when he first held that yellow bouquet of flowers at the Cebu airport. My health has undergone a complete medical miracle. Without the frozen Ohio winters, without the toxic corporate stress, and fueled by a clean diet of fresh ocean fish, tropical fruits, and daily swimming in warm salt water, my blood pressure is perfect, my chronic joint pain has completely disappeared, and I have lost 35 pounds of stubborn inflammation. I am 67 years old now, but I have more energy, more mental clarity, and more physical vitality than I had when I was 45. My relationship with my children back in America has completely transformed. 6 months ago, my daughter Sarah flew out to Bohol with her husband and my 2 grandchildren, fully expecting to rescue her brainwashed mother from an impoverished scam. When she stepped off the ferry, saw our beautiful, peaceful beachfront home, saw how June treated me like a precious queen, and watched how the entire local community embraced our family with pure, unfiltered love and respect, Sarah broke down in tears on our porch. She took June's hand, looked him in the eye, and apologized for every cruel word she had ever spoken. "Thank you, June," she sobbed. "Thank you for giving my mother her life back. I haven't seen her smile like this since my father died." So, let us come back to that terrifying million-dollar question that every single person asked when I first boarded that plane. Did a 65-year-old American woman make a catastrophic mistake by moving to the Philippines to marry a 32-year-old man? If you define a good life by following the rigid, safe, miserable rules of a society that discards aging women into lonely nursing homes and cold, empty houses, then yes, my decision was an absolute, unforgivable mistake. But if you define a good life by having the courage to tear down the walls of your comfort zone, refusing to be buried before your heart actually stops beating, and taking a radical leap of faith into a world where you are deeply loved, cherished, respected, and fully alive every single second of your day, then leaving America and marrying June was the single greatest, most life-saving decision I have ever made in my 67 years on this earth. To every older woman sitting in a quiet, lonely room somewhere right now, looking at your wrinkles in the mirror, feeling like the best chapters of your life are permanently behind you, and wondering if you have the right to dream of romance, adventure, and joy again, I want you to hear my voice loud and clear. Do not let fear, society's judgment, or the cold expectations of other people dictate the boundaries of your existence. You are not dead until your breath leaves your body. There is a great, big, warm, beautiful world out there waiting for you, full of second chances and unexpected miracles. You just have to be brave enough to pack your bags, ignore the cynics, and take the leap.